Hello and welcome to the fifth and the final installment in our Incubeta Ignite's Digital Predictions 2021 series. So far, we've had the pleasure of visiting Australia and Europe, South Africa and the US and getting the range of predictions for the year ahead from our colleagues across the globe. And today in this final series, I'm delighted to welcome Sean Binedell from our Singapore office to tell us all about the prior year and the forthcoming year from an Asian perspective. So Sean, great to have you. Thanks for making the time and for joining us today.
No problem.
So let's start by, we've got an audience here who are dialing in from all over the world. What is the situation in Singapore and more broadly in Asia currently?
So it's actually quite interesting. While the rest of the world mainly started getting the effects from COVID in March 2020, Singapore actually started lockdowning at the end of 2019. So the business effects took into effect a lot earlier than the rest of the world. So we sort of started seeing reduction in spends, a shift in how budget was being spent earlier than the rest of the world.
Yeah. And so how did the governments in Singapore and more broadly respond to that? And how did the advertisers in market respond to the government regulations as they changed?
So a lot of the Singapore regulations are followed quite strictly, and they are quite strict because of the population demographics, and the requirements to businesses across the board were fairly stringent. A lot of our clients in market completely shut down their budget spends for good periods of time, and also had a little bit of an issue with the land bridge between Singapore and Malaysia, which is quite a strong business hub for both countries. Now, with reduction of people traveling across borders to go work in these countries, there was a severe reduction in the amount of work that could be done on a daily basis. So eventually clients decided to start moving their advertising spends, reducing office spaces in market, and just freeing up budget looking at later on in the year. The focus was to target the end of 2020 with the expectation that COVID would have died down. Unfortunately, that's not quite what happened.
Yeah. And so we've heard from some of the other markets, of course, so from Lani in Australia or from John in the US and from other markets as well, that budgets really shifted to digital throughout the year, and particularly in Q4. Did you see that across Asia as well, Sean?
So we didn't quite see it on the Singapore and Malaysia side and with Thailand as well. Basically, what exactly happened in these markets is there was a scenario where COVID got put under control, and then eventually after Chinese New Year, after the holidays, it got spread around the world and started coming back into Singapore. So Singapore hasn't had that relief, or at least that time to start opening up business, opening up stock marketing, because they've kind of been in a continuous cycle of dealing with COVID cases. Effectively, we've had clients such as AirAsia having to shift their business to more your digital infrastructure versus online advertising. So a lot of our clients have started building out their digital advertising. So they started driven creative, their ads data hub solutions, just to prepare themselves or put themselves in a position when the markets do start opening and the government restrictions start lessening, that they're in the position to take full advantage.
That's interesting, Sean. I'm going to pick up on a couple of points you made there. And in your written prediction that we published in, I think, at the end of last year, when I draw reference to that, you spoke about how actually COVID in 2020 has wiped out years worth of data and trends that advertisers used to inform their digital marketing strategies and targeting tactics. Can you expand on that a little bit further?
Sure. What we've noticed with a lot of our clients was a lot of the data we'd become accustomed to working in certain scenarios completely went out the window. And we took quite a few hits with a couple of clients with regards to trying to figure out how to adjust to these changing market conditions. Now, there was a clear correlation between clients that had their full digital infrastructure installed. Let's use Ads Data Hub as an example for the quickness of our response to certain market changing conditions, whereby previous trends or data would end up really giving us little idea of how the full year was going to pan out. And having Ads Data Hub and being able to use that data was fantastic. It really improved performance across the board.
So just speaking to that, because I think when you in your prediction series, you spoke about as data hub in the same sentence pretty much as the data-driven creative. So how do the
Correct.
two tie together? Kind of what does as data hub enabled advertisers to do, perhaps in creative or perhaps audience targeting? Just speak a little bit more to some of the tactics that it has allowed.
Sure. So basically what we've seen is a trend towards personalization of content. And when you're able to marry that with more information from your actual users coming to your website, especially when you're looking at e-commerce, airline travel, it's very important to be able to determine what your users is going to want to see in their creative. I think we've reached a stage where there's so much advertising to everyone across the board that you get a bit jaded to what you're seeing on a daily basis. So the importance of being able to take this data-driven creative and create custom creative very quickly and real time is invaluable. And being able to marry that with your ads data hub and your data that you're generating from that, it really puts you in a strong position going forward.
And I remember Jessica spoke a lot about that, and that being really important across Europe as well. So you're just underlining the importance of that in another region as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So let's look ahead for 2021. And I think you called it the digital arms race. You know, what do you predict will be the biggest trends that we'll see in the year ahead?
So when I was referring to digital arms race, there's a couple of aspects that play into that. One of the first ones in unpacking it is the introduction in the growing Chinese market, especially when you consider the products that are coming out of China, them being direct competitors to what Google products are, Facebook. So once that economy starts growing more and they start getting more involved with the rest of Asia, we're going to get a very big clash, at least between both platforms, and it'll be very interesting to see which platform comes out as the world's premier platform. Now, I don't see that happening anytime in the next couple of years, but it is something that needs to be looked out for, especially when you consider products like WeChat have hit over 1 billion users in the space of a couple of years.
Wow.
There is a huge increase in the let's say the quality of the products coming out of China, when previously they might have had a little bit of a stigma attached to it. That's changing rapidly. And then at a more local level in market specific, basically what you're seeing now is users are coming out of 2020. Obviously, a lot of businesses have taken a hit during that period, but a lot of them are now trying to make up those gains, or at least the businesses that did well during this entire period based on let's say the e-commerce. These guys are basically trying to keep their current position in market and grow. So start pushing out competitors, and this is where the money side comes in, is who's willing to put the money down to get that market share that's very strong for the rest for the next couple of years.
So I guess some of those, going back to what you'd said previously, some of those who will win in that digital arms race will be those who were either already prepared because they had the systems in place, such as Ads Data Hub, or those that have got the money to catch up quickly. That's
correct, yes. And there's also another aspect in this, especially for the Asia market. The idea being is that the Asia market should recover a little bit quicker from the COVID situation, because they have implemented quite stringent laws, is that should give them time to kind of digitally catch up to the rest of the world. Asia's always been slightly behind when it comes to tech and introduction in tech and just digital knowledge. This should give them a good period of time to get on par with your bigger markets in the States, Europe, Australia. So it's a good opportunity for Asia to grow as a whole and really start being a world player.
So thinking about the trends that you're predicting for this year, how do you think advertisers are going to change their approach to budgeting to support the kind of colossal switch to digital in the year ahead?
So what I foresee going into the new year is a major shift to more video advertising, especially with the possible introduction or the rollout of 5G, greatly speeding up page load times, buffering times, which should lead to an explosion in mobile users. Businesses that aren't using video advertising going forward are seriously losing out on a massive revenue opportunity, and also a customer base that's going to grow exponentially over the next couple of years.
Sean, I'm going to just interject with a question there. So do you see that as primarily being small format video on mobile, or do you see that also coming across onto the big screen TV in what John talked about in the US as being a big emerging opportunity in CTV?
Yeah, I think the relationship between the two is important, especially for the brand awareness side of things. If you are pushing out the smaller term mobile videoing, you need to bring that brand awareness to users who need to recall an ad or see something later on at a different ad set. That is a very important factor, that needs to be applied to the whole conversation.
Yeah. So sorry, I interrupted there. So I'll let you get back on the flow on the other parts in relation to how advertisers are shifting budgets. That being one of those, being into video. So I see that, and of course Jessica spoke a little bit about the creative implications of that as well, which I presume are the same in Asia as well.
Yeah, look, there are other aspects to it with regards to the shifting budgets. A lot of it, companies would maybe focus a lot more on offline advertising. I think that's going to slowly start disappearing, especially with the restrictions on movement that we're currently involved with around the world. Those budgets are suddenly less important. There's going to be a massive shift on consumer interaction advertising. So simple things like chatbots, direct email marketing, just something that makes consumers feel that their questions are answered a lot quicker than previously. We're in a very uncertain time, uncertain market at the moment, and to reduce that uncertainty, especially when it comes to if you're launching a new product, is massively beneficial. If you're able to real-time give feedback to potential clients, like I mentioned, you're winning that arms race very quickly.
Right, that's really interesting. It's something I would call high tech and high touch. So using technology to create more touching experiences with potential customers in markets. So you're seeing that across Asia, are you currently?
Yeah, big push, especially with your online retailers. I think the main focus with the online retailers came down to the difficulty of delivery, especially when we had the high increase in online orders with the introduction of restrictions. In fact, the functionality to interact with your users around reduced delivery times, product issues, it was much more effective than having a call center, for instance, and far more real time for customer bases.
Yeah, interesting. Again, another curveball question, but some of those businesses have rushed to online, thinking it's simply a website, a mechanism to take payment and delivery. But of course, there's that important function of dealing with returns. Are you seeing anything in market with advertisers struggling with that?
So yeah, it was a major issue at the beginning of COVID and the beginning of the lockdowns. Obviously, businesses are going to need to start figure out the logistics of it. But I don't see it being at a business level. I think it's the middlemen guys, the delivery companies, who struggled with the change. But I do see that these middlemen companies, delivery companies, quickly upped their game and started meeting targets because the requirement was there, and that's the direction at least online retail is going.
So they stepped in and plugged that gap. Sean, final question. Now, aside from what I know everybody's looking forward to, which is getting to travel again at some point, specifically for holidays, I know you've got some coming up, but what are you most looking forward to? What are you most excited about in the year ahead?
So that's a very good question. So I think one of the biggest things when we look at the direction digital is going, it was kind of a trend that we could predict over a 5-year period. At least big companies like Google would give us a timeline for certain betas, certain products coming out. Now we're sitting in a scenario where everyone's a little bit unsure. Everyone's a little bit nervous of what's going to happen in the next couple of years, and that's clients as well with budgets. So effectively, we're sitting in a situation where this has got exciting again. The machine learning side of things, that's been thrown up in the air slightly, in that we're creating new data through the whole year of 2021. And I think that's quite exciting if you're getting involved in trading or running campaigns, that element of risk. And it's back to the old days of running accounts.
That's very interesting indeed. So the volatility of the data in 2020 has almost reset the machine learning models, which means that we have to take our gloves off, roll up our sleeves, and get stuck in all over again.
It's the best way.
That's a whole webinar series in itself. So we'll save.
Yes.
We'll wrap up here, Sean. But thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your thoughts today for recapping on the year that's been and giving us your thoughts for the year ahead. So thank you very much, and good luck to you and all of the team in 2021 across Asia. And
thank you very much.
Delighted to catch up with you. And for everybody who's taken the time to join us on this Incubeta Ignite digital prediction series, this was the 5th and final in the series. You can catch up with the first 4 episodes in the link below on our Incubeta YouTube channel, or of course on incubeta.com. So please do check those out and add to the conversation. But for now, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, Sean, for taking the time today, and see you all sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.